So it's also going to be taking a transcript.
Okay.
Okay. So hi, Divine. We've actually been working together on the People's Accords for a year, right? We've done so many things together, and in terms of running the cohort and coming up with ideas for how to find guest speakers and managing volunteers, and yeah, it never came up until the last meeting we had with the Citizen Diplomats. You've been kidnapped before. I didn't, and you never told me. And I just thought it was interesting in all of our work we've done internationally and since October 7th. You didn't make any about yourself. I find it also very admirable how you are very family oriented. You have, a great, wonderful family. You're so happy and positive and hardworking. For those of you who are watching this recording, he's actually studying to be a surgeon. He's like full-time medical student, as well as running his own business and helping me as a co-founder at the People's Accord. So Divine, we decided to record our meeting, just to, because I think your story and your philosophy matters, and we should share it with our community. So with that, can you share your story, please?
Amazing. It's an honor to have this conversation and share my story. We've truly been working for a long time now and truly inspire me. And during the last cohort, I really had to, reminisce one of the, I don't want to call it a terrible experience, though it is, in 2015 where I got kidnapped. And it happened specifically in October 3rd. I remember that day. It was an evening like Thursday, I believe. And we are coming back home, me and my family. My dad was driving, I was in front, and my siblings were at the back. And we were driving down the streets to get back home. Then there was a car that was in our front and just like suddenly blocked us. And then three men now came with huge rifles and was pointing at us. And I was so scared because I was in front and my dad was there and my little younger was behind. Quite traumatic, I must say. And then two of them
Wait, they
now
had
came.
guns?
Yeah, they had guns, very good rifles. They were pointing at us. I'm like, stop there, stop there, stop there. Then we just had to like stop. And my dad was driving, so they took him to the back. And the car we were using was this Ford Expedition at the time. So one of the gunmen came to where my dad was, and he was now driving the car. Another came to my right. Because of the way the car is, I was in front, and one was to my right, one was to my left, and the other was behind with my dad. And they threw my siblings away, they were like kicking them out and like throwing them, and then took the two of us, and we drove out. Then the other, I think there were five of them. The two of them now came with their own car. I was now following us with our own car. And then we're now driving. I don't know the route we are taking. But what actually pissed me off was that we had different checkpoints along the routes. And we passed through these checkpoints
A
severally.
checkpoint?
And
Two
yes,
checkpoints you passed while they had you kidnapped. Can I also ask
absolutely.
you, when they say stop there, what if you hadn't stopped? Do you think they would have shot you? Like,
Uh,
no question?
Absolutely. Because men like this, they're not ready to kill you or they kidnap you, one of the two, right? And there was no even way for us to revise or do anything. And because it was not just me and my dad, my siblings were at the back, right? So one wrong move and you could see a whole family wiped out. So it was actually very scary and they were with marks and everything. So it was quite terrible. So we now passed through the first checkpoint and then we were just like flashing torchlights and didn't say anything and then went through different routes. And Ali, I didn't even know the route they were taking us to. I remember I had this watch at the time. It was a small G-Shock watch, and the time was around 8:40 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. And then we are going. We drove for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then that came towards a forest route. Then we now stopped there. Then I told, come down, come down, come down. And that was how they brought me down, brought my dad out. And then we now started walking through that forest track. We walked for about 3, 4
You said
hours. If I
into the
remember,
forest? You went into
yes,
the
into the
forest? So,
forest.
okay, so they're driving crazy through neighborhoods, through checkpoints, and then they stop at the forest and they're like, okay, get out, we're gonna go.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that took us out of that forest, and then we're now walking. We walked for over 3, 4 hours, I believe. Then it's now got to a point. I had this watch, so I was not checking to around 1 a.m. in the morning, and they now took us to a spot, and they were now like, okay, kneel down. So we knelt down, And then I used this white cloth, or is it towel? I can't remember exactly what it was, and then covered our faces. So in my head, I'm like, this is want to shoot us and kill us here because we knelt down and they used this white stone and like covered me and my dad's face. And we were just praying. I was like, Daddy, I love you so much. Like, I thought that was it, honestly. Then I can't remember what happened,
Yeah,
but then we
you're
decided
like
to,
thinking you're giving me your final words. I love you. Like what the you don't know what's gonna happen.
honestly, it was so scary. I can remember
Was
then.
it, do you
But
have any, can I ask if it was like, was it
yeah,
religious based? Like why go through the effort of taking you all that way and then walking 4 hours and like for what? You know, what just,
I
and
think
I'm
at
not
the
trying to change
time,
the story, just like why?
yeah. So most times later on, we found out that it was other people who are actually after us, right? So this was one of the ways because when you think that you have some form of money, they want to like kidnap you and take you for ransom so that you take it. But at the same time, we didn't know whether it was just an assassination attempt or because they actually wanted ransom. So just so dumb. We didn't know what we are doing. We're just like a humble family. My dad is a doctor and helps people. So it was just so conflicting at the time. Why did people actually
Are
do
your
this?
parents public officials? Are you considered wealthy in your area? Are you like, is your family targeted frequently?
We are middle class, I would say, right? We are just quite comfortable, but then people might see the other way around because of how Nigeria is, especially the social economic background. Even if you're like middle class and quite comfortable, other people would come for you because of how hard things actually are in Nigeria at the time. So that could actually be a factor that people would consider. Because even right now, it's becoming very serious if you discuss insecurity. That someone doesn't even matter if people are kidnapping for as little as like $100 to like $500, right? That's how bad things are really at the time. So I could remember then when we were in the forest and they had used this white stones to like cover our faces, and I believe it started to rain at some point. They were not started working and not supposed to be uncompleted building. So in Nigeria, we use bricks and blocks to like build. So they had only roofed it and they had not done plastering or any other thing. So we now stayed there. And I think after about 4 a.m., I believe at the time, then they now took us to a
So were
house
you
where,
three when you were 3 years old when this happened?
no, no, it was in 2015 this happened.
Oh, sorry,
So,
sorry. Let's slow down a bit because I know I'm sorry. Maybe you haven't told this story in a while, and I'm also talking to you from the other side of the world, so like the connection is a little
yeah,
distorted. But you were saying that your family is considered upper middle class, right? Kind of,
yes.
you're not necessarily like even some famous family. It's just that because there's so many people with the disparate, I guess, living conditions, that even when they see a family that's comfortable, they confident. And I'm so sorry that you experienced that, and that um in 2015 it was kind of was it a particularly violent period of time in Nigeria? Because I remember Godwin said in 2014, I think he had experienced a massacre. and and
Yeah.
I
So
sympathize with you on a level that right now I never thought I would be able to understand, that this violence is something that happens in the world, for some people. Like, who doesn't know someone who died in a terrorist attack or who was kidnapped? And that's part of what I think the People's Accords addresses. By like, this is being recorded, so by the way, is that we we can see that as long as citizens, it's almost a one-on-one relationship. When someone is willing to blow themselves up on a bus or go and kidnap a boy and his father at gunpoint, that's a personal interaction. That's a individual decision. And we both seem to believe in, you know, having everyday leadership for making better choices one on one. And I would love for you to finish your story. I just wanted to, for the sake of the recording, go back and summarize what you had said in case
absolutely.
anything was distorted.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks for doing that. So truly it was around 4 a.m. in the morning at this time, where this they now took us towards a building. So it was completed at the time. And that's where we stayed for the first 24 hours. Then I believe the night of the next day that we had been kidnapped and held hostage, they now that time they were not making calls, trying to contact our other family members. And I think that's when they were now starting the negotiation of a ransom to pay at the time. Then I can remember there was one man who came and met us and was not like he flew all the way from Lagos to come to Port Harcourt, which is where we are, just to carry out this operation. So I think they were kind of like an organized organization that does this. And he showed us something I remember that he tied on his waist. So it was kind of like white, like the things in Nigeria you call charm or juju or stuff like that. And I think it's supposed to give them protection so that even if they shoot them or any sort of things, it can't penetrate their body, kind of like a witchcraft stuff. So he was showing us this that nothing will happen to them and a whole lot of that. That the person that sent them for this operation wanted us dead, but because of how we have seen how we are good persons and we just come back from our Christian fellowship, they can't see why these people will do this to us. So what they're going to do is to collect ransom for us. Then I think they are still negotiating, and my mom was worried at the time that siblings should they will see us again. It was quite frightening for them because we don't even know where we are. We are in health stage. Then I think we are kind of in negotiation at the time. Then because I also have some form of like respiratory distress similar to asthma, but it's not. And I believe I started to have this attack at the time. And thankfully they were had some form of function because they did send for the drug and my dad, because it was with me, send them to get so he gets like inhaler, aminophylline, prednisolone, all these drugs that will help me calm down at the time. So they totally give me comfort. Then after then, they now took us to the forest. So we are staying in this building for the first 24 hours. They now took us to the forest. I was staying in that forest for I believe about 4 days. So I just laying there on the ground and it's I can remember how scary that was. At the same time, my dad were just praying together and just like being together. I didn't know what would happen. But finally they finally came to an agreement for a ransom which I don't know how much they paid, but they finally paid it and they finally released us. I'm just so grateful that they didn't do any form of like physical beating to us, but that would have made the whole situation so worse. Because so many of times kidnapping situations you have, you see them that they will break their legs, break their arms so that they can't run. But thankful at the time, none of that happened to us, and we are just there, and who knows what would have happened honestly. So
Just the fact
finally,
that I think the psychological torture of having to walk for 3 hours or 4 hours in that situation, like maybe they didn't even need to break your legs, you know, but at the same time, the fact that you know that just because so many people have had it happen to them is crazy. Where it's not even a religious issue at this point. It sounds like it's a economic issue where there's just wow. I s-
honestly,
I can't imagine. Did you say you suffer from panic attacks ever, or that how
I
did it affect you afterward?
so I have a kind of like a respiratory condition. So after some times, it's almost similar to asthma, although it's not asthma. And I sometimes need an
I don't
inhaler,
know what is that, ashmia?
asthma, asthma attack, when we have to use an
Oh,
inhaler.
asthma.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. You have like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So sometimes I have to put this close to me because it could get quite
Is it
serious.
from like panic, like almost like an asthma attack from like let's say you see like I don't know something just comes over you and you feel like it
So
happened after the kidnapping?
most times I'm allergic to certain substances that triggers my substances. It might be a smell, it might be dust, it might be something. So once it triggers it, most times I can just calm it down if it's not that severe. But in this case, it was that severe, and they now have to go get some drugs to alleviate me at the
My
time.
brother has
So
that.
yeah.
And like I just anyways, I don't know if I caught how long were you being held there? Was it for more than a day?
So in total, I think we spent about 5, 6 days
Oh,
in the.
and did they feed you?
So thankfully, from time to time, they were bringing, I believe, fruits so that we eat. And there was one time they brought food because of there was one of them who, when he now found out that we had the same religious affiliation, he would had those sentiments like why they would do this, and he was just being the most compassionate to us and like giving food. By the time we were also scared because
So he was a Christian as well?
yeah, but he had left the Christian denomination we belonged to. So when he now found out why our whole story, because we had never met before, because we had this conversation.
Wow,
So he now had
imagine that. For
this,
just because the sound is distorted, I'm just gonna repeat. It's imagine like for the I guess Westerners in the audience, you go to high school with someone, and then one day you're kidnapped with your father, and then you realize that the person realizes that was someone you went to high school with, the person you just kidnapped, was the person you prayed with, was the person you studied with, who seemed like just a nice normal person is now the one kidnapping and abusing you. That is wow. And he realized, though, it sounds like he had a change of heart at some point. Like
Yeah, at some
he,
point, because when he now found out, truly, and we now he not just started to have this sympathy for us. I really say like God had to use him, and he was the one who was kind of like bringing the food. But at the time when he brought the food, we were always kind of like scared because what if it's poisoned or what if there's something in the food? You don't know these people, but somehow I just had to eat, and I think my dad didn't eat anything throughout those periods, and I believe they brought watermelon. I think the rice they brought at the time. But when we were in the forest, I can't really remember we eating much at the time. We were just like praying that we get released. It was, oh my God, now I'm even remembering it. It was really a scary
I can't
time.
believe that it's
Yes.
February 9th right now, and there's still people who were at a freaking party. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to a rave, but it's pretty common in the US. On the weekends, even adults with children will go out to these dance festivals and like wear, skimpy clothing, dance around, do art. And to imagine him going to one of that where you just wake up on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning and someone ripped you from your bed and then stuck you in a cage pretty much and beat you from October 7th until now. And just I can't believe that the world and I know maybe this is controversial and it shouldn't be controversial for me to say that the world is justifying it, is not has not from the beginning just said Hamas should surrender and return the hostages. Instead is demanding Israel to cease fire, provide to them food and water and aid to the people who have their hostages, who are trying to murdered and slaughtered people in their homes. What kind of world is this that like even the UN, the UNRWA was like very known, well-known, supporting them, and like actually had thousands of employees participate in providing educational material that encouraged like killing Israelis. I
Yes,
hear your story, and I
yes.
think
And I believe
if
it
I
just
hadn't
so
experienced this, I wouldn't even
absolutely,
understand even a little bit.
absolutely,
And I
absolutely
still don't understand. Like I'm safe. I'm now in America, and like I didn't actually lose anyone that I know
true. But you were
personally,
in
that I know, but
Israel.
many did.
Yeah, but you were in Israel when the attack happened, and there's just this uncertainty you had at the time that you don't know what would happen. You had missiles flying over your houses and your head, and you were not sure what would happen. So it's truly scary at that time, right? Because you're anxious, you don't know what's going to happen. You are hearing the reports, and sometimes it could be exaggerated, but sometimes you're also seeing
That they're
this.
just coming into people's houses and
Honestly,
slaughtering people. And like
honestly,
we built so normally how they actually learn to kill people better is because Israelis have a defensive system. So the Iron Dome just stops them from shooting us most of the times. That's why Hamas got to the point they did. So what they did this time is they know that the bomb shelters don't have locks on the doors because people just go down to hide,
yeah,
and so there's no lock. So they killed people by getting them in the shelter and then throwing grenades in there and just blowing them all up. And so we put locks on ours. Aviram installed like a big, like terrorist lock because
honestly,
you didn't know if the people who they steal our cars sometimes. And by the way, the Israeli policy is to just let them steal the cars. They want to steal it. That's what you have insurance for. Fine. And his when he was in the army, the house was broken into twice. I think they
yeah.
stole his army vehicle and they stole a rifle from the house. And so I was like afraid to change my clothes, to even take a shower, because I was like, these, if anyone comes in, I have to be ready. I have to be ready to
Yeah.
kill them. It's a fight for my life, was the feeling of it, because that's how they want to do it. Instead of the Palestinians saying, hey, we want to have diplomatic relations, we want to build a state, we want to open our resorts to travelers and to have negotiations both ways. We can host beautiful events. Let's have peace. But their entire movement has been allowed to base itself on calling for the destruction of Israel, while somehow people call them the humanitarian abused ones. Gaza had more hospitals than some Arab countries. Like, think about that. They've been simultaneously called an open air prison while having, anyways, I've been really mind blown and had a hard time even focusing on just work after experiencing this. So 2015 was almost 10 years ago, but you were still a young man, you know, at informative years, that this experience is so personal. It was, even though it was economic, it's still like a Hamas or something coming just to get you and take you and put you in this abusive situation. I can't, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
I can't let it go sometimes. Like it's,
It's human. It's
it's,
human. When you go through or live through experiences like that, it somehow becomes a part of you. And in your case now, when you still see how polarizing this issue has still been, and people saying or doing things that you just can't believe how people could think like this, it just gets to you at some point, right? Because people are supposed to see things that happen, but then they have a different opinion, different views. I mean, that's just sadly how the world is. But truthfully, with the work we're even doing at Boost Accord, this is what we are here for, to advocate for things like that, and people can talk about it, and hopefully we can just create a global discourse from people along different worlds and commonly come to peace and resolution. That's what inspired the Boost Accords and all of that. So
indeed. And, you know, I actually want to talk to you about that because
yeah,
Dr. Abu Kumsan, who I interviewed before,
yeah,
we had initially talked about having a project between Israelis and Palestinians. We had found an Israeli solar company that wanted to help work with Palestinians to
yeah,
build some sort of solar plant, because I learned through my interactions with Mustafa that they have 4 hours of electricity in Gaza a day, that, you know, they have really harsh living conditions. And I wouldn't say that that's necessarily Israel's fault. And I think even in my talks with him, uh, Hamas, he warned against that every time. Like I tried connecting with a solar company in Gaza, and I messaged a woman on LinkedIn, and I tried to connect her with Mustafa, and he freaked out. He was like, "She's from Hamas. She is so dangerous. This is very, very serious, Lydia. Like, be careful." And the funny thing is, he had invited me to visit him in Gaza. He said, "Please, like, come. I'll show you like how we live. I'll show you Gaza. Like, I'll keep you. You know, you can stay with me and my family." And I obviously declined because he said I would have to say I'm Christian, and the thought that they can enter here to work or come in from the West Bank, but if I enter there, it will just kill me. And like I
it's
asked him after October 7th, because he asked me for help, because I checked in on his family. I know he's teaching in New York right
yeah,
now, but I'm sure he has family. So I reached out to say, you know, do you even have a home to go back to?
yeah,
Because I know we're bombing them. I know. And unfortunately, it's because we are so afraid. We are so afraid of going in there. I mean, what, 60,000 people have died out of the 5 million that live there, and many of them are Hamas operatives. That's the thing they're not talking about on the news. Or these are active Hamas operatives being targeted, or at least sympathizers who sympathize with
absolutely.
Hamas, or were civilians who were locked in their homes by Hamas. Hamas, sorry. So I confronted him. Back to the topic. I know I digress. That
It's fine.
I asked him, because he's the only person I think that, one, he's inspired me and worked with me on
Yeah,
really towards impacting peace and having something
absolutely.
that benefits both sides, both, you know, spiritually, economically. And we kind of got into a fight because I said, you know, I can't send you like money. I can try and direct you to an agency that can, but I want to know, like, would you have, you say it like, would you have turned me to Hamas if I came to visit you? Is this what would have happened to me? Look at these people and how they died. It's so bad. And he said, Lydia, like, you're educated by now. You should know, um, like, Israel is just the occupation or something. Like, they can't even say the name. Like, it's so ingrained into the Palestinian mind to call them occupiers, Zion, like, not a country of people, that it kind of came to like, we can't talk anymore. He actually doesn't want to talk to me. And I tried convincing him. I said that, like, because he feels like we can't make a difference as individuals anymore. His feeling that us as people working together won't make a difference. That the mind, there's no, I don't know, there's no more to talk about, kind of thing. And I told him, you and me just talking does make a difference, because I was there and you were there. And if we can agree to say that we don't like Hamas and that we can work towards peace, then we can. But if you continue to say that the Israeli people should die and not be there, we I don't want to. I don't want to support that. I can't. So the way that the women were
Absolutely.
killed in these situations, it's
Absolutely.
unbearable. It's
Yes.
unbearable that this should go on, and that there. I don't see why the world is talking about having, anyways, a Palestinian state until we talk about Palestinian diplomacy, because there are Palestinian diplomats, I believe, but as a people and what we do at the People's Accords, which is citizen to citizen diplomacy, we need to walk away from this idea of just death and hate. And it doesn't, one person doesn't belong here, because if you dig under Jerusalem, you find Jewish stuff. There never was a king of Palestine. There never was a Palestinian like authority before the PLO, which was also a known terrorist group. That it's really, I really think the burden of proof should be on Palestinians to be diplomatic, because they started the war of 1948 and then lost. And for some reason, 50 years later, still want to be called refugees instead of saying, hey, let's work together. Let's take classes between Al Azhar University and Tel Aviv University, and that we can design things that are going to help us govern well and invent new technologies and medicines. And we can even work on tourism together. What is the reason of I want my 2-year-old to become a shaheed more than I want my 2-year-old to grow to be a world traveling multilinguist who understands history and culture and lives a good life? Like this, and I might be called a bigot for saying this. I was abandoned at a bar this summer in May for suggesting that Palestinians have a terrorist problem. I just met this girl. She was drunk,
Yeah.
so I'll give her that.
Yeah.
And she left the bar crying upset, apparently, because I said that.
Wow.
So I know we're talking about our stories as the co-founders of the People's Accords, and I think we'll have to cut off our call here for the viewers, and we have to. It's late for Divine, and I got to get going. But I really hope anyone who's watched this, you found any insights based on his experience and my experience and our story here. If you are called to the mission of becoming a leader, a citizen diplomat, you should definitely check out the People's Accords website. If you have a story you want to share, you can leave it in the comments or send us an email, or even, we encourage you to apply to join our cohort, which we host once a year in the spring. And with that, Divine, are there any notes you'd want to share with any of the viewers?
Absolutely. It's been an honor to have or share my story. And truly, one message will be that we can't live by what has happened to us in the past, right? We can only learn from it and then chart a new course forward. So, be it whether the issue that's going on with Israel and Palestine, be it the issue that's going on in different parts of the country, in Nigeria or in across Africa, across the world, right? We all need to make better decisions that would actually lead to a better outcome, because people need to feel safe. People don't need to die. The whole world needs to come to peace. No war on both parties, because it actually brings pain and sorrow on either side, and no human should actually have to go through that. I think we all need to look at ourselves as humans and actually remain positive that there's good out there in the world, honestly, because we don't think that, I mean, what's the alternative really? So truly, we can decide what we do each day and make a positive outcome for the world. Thank you so much, Lydia, for giving us the opportunity. I'm truly inspired by what you're doing and what you're doing at the People's Accords. I can't wait to see what you do in the coming future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Divine. I actually want to, I don't know, to say one last story of someone who didn't make it back. Because the thing is you and I are here to share the stories of when we did make it, when things were fine. But the gravity of people's choices is that sometimes people choose to end someone else's life. And there's a young woman who, I'm getting married next week. And as I was buying my dress, I couldn't help but think of the sister of my friend who, she was 23 years old and she was murdered at the Nova party by Hamas. Her name was Adi Margalit. And she was just a beautiful, sweet girl with a future. And she went to a party with her friends and terrorists showed up. And she ran by foot. She ran by foot to the nearby kibbutz. And she texted her family at 8 a.m. and said, I'm safe, I'm here. And then they never heard from her again, because somebody went in there and decided to murder her. And I never asked. I never would ask the family what happened, how they knew, because it took a few days to identify the body and all of the bodies that were there, and to think she was just such a beautiful, sweet young woman who she didn't go and choose to murder anyone in Gaza. And she didn't go and they came and they hunted her like she deserved it. And the fact that there's people on Twitter and people on YouTube who might even have the audacity to write in the comments that she does. This is the thing that we're challenging people to address, is that you have a choice. She chose to go to a party. She chose to love her family. She chose to live her life to the fullest. And, may her soul rest in peace. But for those of us who are still here, don't be the person who goes to choose and hunt down girls at parties and murder them. To be the person who chooses to uplift your community, to bring business opportunities, to invent technologies, to care about people's health, to work with your coworkers supportively and not always so hostile, no matter how poor we are, no matter how abused we feel by the world, because I could tell more horror stories just from my own childhood. But we have a choice. Even no matter what psychologists might suggest that free will is somehow an illusion, I think at some point we are all diplomats in our own way. And the power of technology is giving us a voice to share our stories, to connect, and to make better choices. So with that, it's a bit heavy, but I think it matters. And Divine, I just appreciate you so much. And thank you, everyone who came to listen to our stories today. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye.
Oh my God. Did it not record that? Did it not record that?
Really?
No.
Wow.
Did it really stop that whole time?
No, it's recorded. Yeah. No, it's been recorded. This call is not recorded.
No, I just pressed it because when I pressed it at the end, when we just finished, I thought I pressed it to stop recording.
Oh, really?
All right. Really. So let's see.